Welcome to WHX Insights. My name is Peter Birch. This podcast is powered by WHX Tech. Joining me today is Sally Ann Frank, Global Lead for Health and Life Sciences at Microsoft for Startups. Hey, Sally Ann, how are you going?
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here with you.
It's good to have you here on the podcast. Firstly, I'd love to get you to provide a bit of context, a bit about you and what you do, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I lead our strategy plans and programs for health and life sciences at Microsoft for Startups. So what that means is I help establish what our goals are and the strategy that we're going to take to make sure that it conforms to the overarching Microsoft strategy for health and life sciences, and then work with our team to recruit and then grow a small set of startups that are in what we call our Pegasus program, which is our top tier. But Microsoft for Startups in its entirety is designed to help early stage companies grow and scale using our technology. And so with my focus on health and life sciences, we select a small portfolio of companies that we work with for about 2 years. And we not only help them on the technical side, which is what everyone expects, but we work on the go-to-market side, leveraging our customer network for their benefit.
A topic that's been quite in front and center at the moment is female founders, so female-led organizations. What kind of insights are you seeing, particularly in the healthcare side, in terms of the impact that those are having?
Yeah, so I think we have kind of a new generation of female founders that are beginning to take charge, are tired of waiting for others to innovate, and are saying, I'm going to do this today. And so a few of them that I work with, can I mention them?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Okay, so the first one is Nuramai, and it's founded by Dr. Geeta. And she's out of India, and Nuramai is designed to do breast cancer detection without mammography using AI. And she literally has a camera that she carries around in her purse. And so with the combination of the small camera and AI, she can go places that don't have access to mammography. She can set that up in community clinics or in drugstores or other areas where there aren't mammography stations. And so by doing so, she has been able to democratize breast health. So that's one. And her mission was actually sparked by the fact that she had two very close people in her life that died very early from breast cancer because it wasn't detected earlier enough. So that's one. The other one is Tech Health. And this is one of the ones that I really have affinity for because it's outside the traditional femtech role. You know, we often think of reproductive health, menopause, which are all great, and we need that. But we also need to look at areas where we've been traditionally treating women as small men. And cardiology is one of those areas. And so Dr. Steinbaum out of New York has set up a company called Tech Health. And she is essentially codifying all that she's learned as a cardiologist focused solely on women and helping them understand their cardiac health. She wrote a book about it and really trying to differentiate how women present with cardiac disease versus men. Heart attacks present differently in women than men. And if we don't have that information, we're going to miss women's heart attacks and other cardiac issues. So that's another one. And then going back to the femtech, there's a company called The Pause by Susan Sly. And what they are doing is helping women through menopause. So one of the things that goes unnoticed is that as men age, their testosterone level begins to drop very gradually. But in women, when they go through menopause, it's like your estrogen and all of those female hormones are here, and then the next day they're way down low. And so it's a very different experience for women going through menopause and aging. And so her focus is really to try and educate women, to educate providers, and help women through that transition in a much healthier way, in a much more stable way, if you will.
No, I love that. I mean, the point around, I mean, I've heard it dubbed as bikini medicine, where the need for femtech goes much more beyond just what some people would think that it is. And there's a lot to unpack there in and of itself around femtech. Thinking about the, on the founders that you're supporting, particularly the female-led founders, the organization with female-led founders, what are the needs? You mentioned about the support that's provided, and there's the technology, of course, but then all the other bits and pieces. What are you finding as a common thread that those founders are needing the most at the moment?
The thing that they need the most is not necessarily guidance, because I think they're all really smart and they know what their mission is and how to accomplish it. But it's more about connections. It's more about promotion. It's more about getting them the platform that they need to get their message out. You know, one of the things that I think about in some cases are not taken seriously. Menopause is not taken seriously. You know, some of the things, up until I think it was 1993, in the US, women were not included routinely in clinical trials. What? I mean, that's insane. So I think it's more about building awareness, building them up to the point where people understand their mission, people understand the value that they bring. And frankly, from an economics perspective, if you're investing in a women's founded company, the likelihood is that you're going to see an ROI of 3 to 1. And that fact, while documented, is not well known. So there's value to the ecosystem and to our population, because women who are untreated in some of these areas can miss 2, 3, 4 days of work a month. So it goes to the economics of keeping a healthy workforce, as well as the economics of getting a return on investment for investors.
More broadly, the femtech side is it's more than just a niche industry. It's not a niche industry vertical. It's a societal infrastructural requirement, that is there because of.
Yeah, 50% of our population are women, and yet the R&D investment in femtech and other, like cardiology, that presents differently is like 1%.
And so thinking that then from an investor or a commercial point of view, you did touch on there that there's a greater ROI in investing in women-led organizations. Tell me a bit more about the decisions around that, and I guess the commercials or the return on investment, because on one hand there are great institutions and investors that will back female-led organizations or femtech companies, because not just because it's the right thing to do, but also because they see that benefit and it's aligned with the values. But I feel like there's so much more untapped potential in the ecosystem for us to have that cultural or at least understanding shift, that there's a real opportunity there. Tell me a bit more about that opportunity.
So, we've talked about this a little bit already, but it's unlimited, frankly, because there's so much to be done. There is so much need out there, whether it's, a Neuromai example where you can provide care where there isn't care, where you can focus on maternal health, mental health, like Grace Chang from Kintsugi Health. She's focused on bringing voice biomarkers for depression, anxiety, and stress to market. This is a huge area, and it's a huge area for women and for men, but specifically for women in this space. We've got another founder that has Vital Start, Krithika, with a very long last name that I would probably butcher, but it's called Vital Start, and she's working solely on mental health during maternity, during the baby blues and all of that, because when you have women who are such an important part of our society, are for better or for worse, still the glue that holds the family together. If they're not healthy, then it all falls apart. And so the opportunity is it's not just ROI, it's not just in the workplace, it's societal. It's the opportunity to come together and to be healthier as a population across the globe.
Thinking beyond the as you've explained, that the challenge is beyond just female founders wanting to access capital. We often hear about the uneven distribution of where funds go in healthcare technology investments. There's the need for the networking and the connections that you mentioned, but are there any other common kind of challenges or things that perhaps the ecosystem is a headwind to female founders in really trying to make them up? Because you see so many organizations come usually with personal experience or this great opportunity, but we kind of let them down as an industry and ecosystem.
One of the things that I'm hearing, and I know this happens to men as well, but one of the things I'm hearing repeatedly is having a female founder hire someone who's a regulatory expert who turns out not to be, or someone who's uh, a chief business officer that comes in fractionally and doesn't deliver, or someone who is actually a partner in the firm and somehow doesn't live up to expectations or doesn't deliver on their part of the equation. And so I don't know if, and these are all anecdotal, and I don't have any research on how often this happens, but I do have, and maybe men don't share this with me, but I do have female founders that share these stories with me that are just heart-wrenching because they have limited resources. They invest in a person that tells them that they vetted, that says, yes, I can help you in this particular area. And then it turns out that they're really not giving their all to this company. And so I think the desire to have a better, not only network, but access to people with track records, people that they can rely on. Because look, you're a founder, you have a vision, you know what you want to create, but it doesn't mean that you have the business skills. It doesn't mean you have the technical skills. That's not your job. Your job is to build the vision and to execute on that. And so they have to rely on other people. So I think it's incumbent upon us as an ecosystem to help them find the right partnerships, the right customers, the right people that will buy into their mission and go along the journey every step of the way in a productive, constructive, and helpful manner.
I feel like that's applicable to an individual that might be listening to this podcast in terms of how they may engage with anyone in the ecosystem, but particularly female founders. But also I feel like there's a responsibility at that enterprise level too. And, a great example in terms of the work that Microsoft is doing, but there's probably a role for all the other big players within the ecosystem to ensure this kind of stuff is embedded in culture and the way they do things.
Absolutely. And I think, some of the things that we do at Microsoft for Startups, as other programs do, is we will have special programs for underrepresented founders, whether they're from an underrepresented area, underrepresented group, or in this case, female founders, where we'll try and get them together, bring specific resources that we think can help. And but it's a drop in the bucket. I mean, everybody needs to contribute to that, and everybody needs to understand that some of the best ideas come from some of the most unexposed areas, right? Whether it's a small town in India like Dr. Geeta, or it's an area where, we haven't really thought about women's health differently, like in cardiology.
I often reflect on this, and I'm interested in your thoughts. Do you find this topic of, and I think it's applicable in both female-led organizations and also in the broader femtech ecosystem, sometimes the challenge is that, I guess, from a male's perspective or from a man's perspective, it might be, I recognize why this is important, but this is not my lane, or I feel uncomfortable or not equipped in order to best support. So I feel like there's always this, not emotional trade-off, but a level of confidence, or I guess inclusion that's required. Like sometimes people feel like they need to assist, but then hope that someone else will, if you know what I mean. So I feel like there's a long way for us to get as an ecosystem that really goes beyond the, here's the obligatory femtech panel at an event, or here's the obligatory component in the board deck or something. But like it's something else that just becomes implicit in the way we do things. But I'm not sure how we get to that point as a larger group.
So I think part of that comes from the opportunity of those that have gone before us to help others, to share what they've learned. And yes, we kind of all have to make our own mistakes, but hopefully we can learn from others. And the one that comes to mind is Molly He from Element Biosciences. She shared her story with me about growing her company that does DNA sequencing and is now a unicorn. And she shared her story with me and talked about the fact that she was aware that we had Illumina, which is this high throughput, high cost DNA sequencing organization, and they do great work. I'm not trying to diminish that. And then they had these small specialty labs that were inexpensive, but took forever. And she was able to recognize this gap in the market and fill it. But it wasn't an easy journey for her. And so there are people like Molly, people like the founder of Maven and others, that if they could share their triumphs, their trials, and let the other women in the ecosystem learn from them, that would be really helpful. And I think organizations like Springboard does a lot of that. There are organizations that do it, but they're not capturing all of the female founders. And so I think we need to look at how we are structuring the ecosystem to give those ladies an opportunity to share their story and to teach others how to be successful.
Tell some of those success stories or the benefits of going through that process and across anyone with the ecosystem, then you really kind of feel that and kind of resonate with as opposed to just seeing the stats or the what's required. So I think that's going to be important too. If there was, I feel like some of this has already come out in the conversation, but to kind of really hammer home for any perhaps aspiring or current female founders of organizations looking to create solutions, what's the type of advice you usually give to them about giving them the best chance of success?
So there are a few things. So first of all, being coachable is important. So you have a vision, and I don't think this is really a problem, but I do try and bring it up. Most women are open to suggestions and constructive help. So that's one. Another thing is making sure that you do your market research. And frankly, these are not just points for female founders, but for a lot of founders in all areas that I work with. It has never been easier to do market research. Pick the generative AI model of your choice and go, this is the offering that I'm building. I would like to target this organization. Look at their annual report, look at their news feeds, and tell me how best to position my company. Or this is what I'm thinking about. This is my big idea. Tell me who else is doing it and what's the method for that. And your Gen AI model will come back with a table that will spell it all out for you. So market research has never been easier. So I really stress that doing that, going through that step, which takes all of 5 minutes, is really critical so that you know how to position and differentiate. And then the final thing is to find advocates, find your champions that will buy into your vision, buy into your mission, and go along with you every step of the way. And oftentimes these people don't expect to be paid. They see the value, they see an agent of change in you, and they want to be helpful. They want to say, oh, well, come into my organization and let's give you some more feedback on what you're building. Let's go through your MVP and we'll give you feedback. So, and I think part of that is not only those personal connections, but also finding people on LinkedIn to follow and follow their journey. And frankly, I get emails and LinkedIn messages all the time from founders who want to talk, who want to share their stories and get some feedback. And while I can't do all of them, I do a lot of them. And if you contact somebody and go, hey, we're building this, we'd love your feedback because you're an expert in this, very few people are going to say no.
100%. Such useful, actionable tips, Sally. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through those and sharing some of those examples too. It's really inspiring to hear. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. It's been great.
And thank you for joining us on WHX Insights. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube so you can catch all the episodes. My name is Peter Birch. I'll speak to you next time.